Well, welcome everyone to Monday, November 6, 2023, regular Village Council meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order. Judy, if you wouldn't mind calling the roll, please.
All right, Stokes.
I am here.
DeVore Leonard.
Here.
Hausch.
Here.
McQueen. Here. We are still expecting Carmen Brown any moment. Also present is Solicitor Amy Blankenship, Chief Burge, Finance Director Amy Kemper, and Interim Village Manager Johnny Burns.
All righty. Thank you very much, Judy. And do we have any announcements this evening?
Yeah, I have a few. Kevin, I'm going to save voting for you, so because you always do a good job with that.
Thank you.
So, belated happy birthday to fellow council member Gavin DeVore Leonard.
Indeed.
I'm sure you had a lot of fun.
26, 27.
And, yeah, 27, I think, yeah.
It's got to be believable.
And I know Riley Dixon from the Yellow Springs News has gotten lots of congratulations about wedding bliss. So, yes, good to hear that.
Use the other hand, though, Riley.
So I wanted to say Halloween was great. Thank you to our police team and to the village for supporting all the different activities. That was great. I also wanted to mention that the Touch a Truck Trunk or Treat event was really awesome. The weather held out, and I saw a lot of happy kids getting candy, so that was great. If Carmen, I think I'll let Carmen, she'll probably get here in time to talk about the Village Inspiration and Design Award celebration, which was really great. I wanted to mention, it's been talked about, and I think I just want to put it out there that a iWorks tutorial needs to happen, and I think it's something that Ben, who is running our community access station, has the capacity to do. I know it's important to Johnny and the team, and a lot of folks have just wanted to know, like, how do they use our online reporting system. We had a great budget session. We're going to be talking about the outcomes of that this afternoon. That happened on the 20th of last month. A couple things. One of these are for Carmen and I, but also so that Judy knows, we will be doing your annual evaluation this month. So we're not going to be last minute anymore. We're on top of things. And so Carmen and I will come up with a date to first connect with Judy, and then I expect that there will be a executive session, the first meeting in December for all of council, to kind of talk about the goals and how we're moving forward. The other thing is, in keeping with our monthly reviews with our interim village manager, Gavin and I will be meeting with Johnny next week. And so, Gavin, since I know you like to set those dates, maybe right after this meeting, you and Johnny can figure that out. And that will also tie into that 3-month review that we promised. Finally, I wanted to mention 2 folks that have passed recently. One of those is Paul Graham, and many of you might know that Paul had his celebration of life this past Saturday. What an amazing individual. Like, I have been so lucky personally to be in the village long enough to get to meet icons like Paul, who were involved in so many activities and made such a huge difference to the community. And so I did want to recognize all of his contributions. And the other individual that I wasn't expecting was Kent Bristol. Passed recently, and I turned to Mary Ann because when she and I both came on council 10 years ago, Kent Bristol had come back after 15 years as our village manager, to be our interim for a year. And we were definitely schooled on what the delineation between village manager and council roles were, including getting a letter in the mail about that. But I really appreciated, Kent, like all that he brought forward to the village for that long period of time. We've only had one other village manager who was here longer than Kent Bristol, and that was Cahill for 20 years. Kent was great, and the fact that he was willing to come out of retirement and support the village until we eventually brought on Patty Bates, and then a litany of other great village managers was awesome.
Brian, while you're on the Kent Bristol thing, there was a prepared statement that I was going to read, and you can go ahead and if you don't mind.
Please do that. Yeah.
Well, I just gave you my copy, so I'm going to ask you to go ahead. Since you're on the roll.
So
there's some salient points that I thought ought to be shared.
All right, so we hit the 15 years. We hit the fact that Kent came back for 9 months, bringing his calm, humorous, and always meticulously well-dressed presence to the aid of the village as a new manager was sought. I think this is a great thing that was highlighted, that during the time that Kent was here, which as interim was only 9 months, that brought in Melissa Dodd. For those of you that don't remember, great finance manager, brought a lot of innovation. Johnny Burns, look where we are there. Ben Sparks and Jeff Horn. And the other thing is, we definitely, I think Kent certainly deserves a moment of silence, and let's do that now. Okay, so Carmen, I left a spot for you to talk about that awesome VITA celebration, and then Kevin's going to talk about voting tomorrow, and then if we have anything else.
Yep. So this past Friday, November 3rd, Public Arts and Culture Commission sponsored an event held at Herndon Gallery. Thanks to Antioch and Michael Caselli for holding space for us. This was the first time that we, as a commission, decided to honor everybody at once in an official ceremony, as opposed to doing it 2 or 3 times a year. We had a really great turnout. This year, the recipients of the VITA were Valerie Blackwell Truitt, Pierre Negley, who's off in Japan now. We were able to get a quick Facebook Messenger kind of video call thing in with he and his wife, Kaya Kim. Help me. It was Valerie? Yeah, Kathy.
Rover. Yep.
And
Yep.
and
Deborah Dixon.
Deborah Dixon. Brilliant visual artist, and she's working. She works in all media. So it was really pretty great. I was pleasantly surprised that we were able to pull it all together, and it went off without a hitch, which, quite honestly, I wasn't expecting, but we did it. It was a good show, and I look forward to many more opportunities to celebrate us that way.
Yeah, and I thought you and the Public Arts and Culture Commission team did an amazing job. Yeah, it was nice to see everybody there, and I had no doubt it would go off without a hitch.
Good party.
So, yeah, and thanks again to Michael Caselli for that amazing new individual award that he designed for the VITA, which is really cool. Okay. Kevin Stokes, what's happening tomorrow?
Kevin, can I say something before?
Sure.
So I would like to just piggyback on what Brian said about Paul Graham, what are people in their 90s, what are they called?
Novagenarians,
whatever, he was 94.
something like that.
And among the numerous things that he contributed to the community was the spearheading the integration of the Gegner Barbershop and that whole legal and battle that went on, as well as the involvement of Antioch College. So he was really one of those important people that we need to remember as founders of this village and what it means. Kevin, what I wanted to ask of you is I have been hearing from a number of citizens very concerned about the error that I guess the county made on the original ballots, in which there were only 2 options for voting for council. And apparently there were a couple dozen people that, maybe more, I don't know, who voted and only had 2 options for council. Apparently there was an effort to remedy that, but the whole thing, not only does it look bad, it has potential implications because some of those people that originally voted may not have been able to vote again. So it potentially impacts who gets on council. And it certainly increases, I think, the distrust of our voting system. So, Kevin, if you can address whatever you know about what happened and what was done to why it happened and what has been done to remedy that, I think that would be helpful for people.
Yes, thank you. And first of all, let me thank all of you for the announcements, all the information on the various announcements. I think everything that was presented was appropriate, and just want to emphasize the importance amongst all the other things that we have to do up here. Sharing information certainly is one of them, and I do appreciate that. So we found the error about a month ago, and I made the initial call to the County Board of Elections and explained to them how things work here. As we're all aware, on every odd number year, 3 seats are up for re-election. I don't want to suggest how they made the mistake, but they were unfamiliar with our process. I mean, when I mentioned to the gentleman that 3 seats, we have 5 seats on council, and every odd number year, 3 of them are up, 4 for it, and 2 years for the first, second, and third place vote getter respectively. And his initial response was, so you have 6 people on council? I said, no, and broke it down. So I don't want to surmise. If I were to, I would submit that it might have something to do with Gavin's seat, Gavin being appointed, and they just assumed, that he wouldn't come up again. So we had to, Judy, I referred the call to her. She communicated with the folks at the Board of Elections. We had to send copies of our charter and explain all of what we know to be commonplace in the way that our elections go. So it is a county board of election issue. I've spoken to a few people, and I would encourage us all in the next few hours to do the same and share with folks that they reach out to the Board of Elections and let them know what the situation is. I think we have a hard number of the suspected number of improper ballots that were used.
Right, so 47 people got early ballots that said vote for not more than 2. Then that was corrected. They were supposed to have done a follow-up mailing immediately thereafter. That apparently did not occur. Laura Curlis, I will say, has been right on top of this, and she contacted me when she realized her son hadn't gotten an updated ballot as of last week. So I called, they looked, they hadn't gone out. They said they'd get them out as soon as possible. Apparently, they sent them out without any explanation, so folks just got another ballot. So we are talking about 47 people. The initial voting, I think, was corrected pretty rapidly. So it's not a council issue.
Right.
It's not council's job to fix, not council's error, not council's deal. So I, in fact, wouldn't go into great length about it, really, except to say that if you feel you didn't receive a correct ballot, you got to vote for not more than 2, you didn't receive a correction, you should immediately go to the Board of Election, do so by 5 o'clock tomorrow, and they will let you re-vote if you did not get a correct ballot.
Yep. So thank you for that, Judy. So obviously, tomorrow evening, we'll have at least some numbers. And I would submit that we do as Judy advised. I mean, if you had an incorrect ballot, if you used it, contact the Board of Elections, follow up, do what needs to be done to make sure that your wishes are well represented on a properly submitted ballot. And then after tomorrow, we will have to see what happens to the degree that the numbers differ. And so, again, as Judy acknowledged, it's a Board of Elections issue. We just all need to be aware of potential ramifications. And I would encourage everyone to vote. I was going to say early and often, but early anyway. This could, as has been alluded to, could be a bit of a concern for us, depending on what the results are. But I would submit at this point that each individual that submitted an incorrect ballot, follow up with the Board of Elections, and then we as a body will, assess the results of the election, and we'll certainly be in communication with them to find out what changes might occur after the official count tomorrow or whenever they finally do an official count. And we'll keep everyone abreast of what the Board of Elections is doing to resolve things.
Well, they don't certify till December, so
Yeah.
there's a while.
Yeah, so there's time to fix it. So we just need to be about fixing it. Those who need to take action, please make note and do so.
Kevin?
Yes, ma'am.
So I think that there's probably a concern about people being cited for voting twice, because essentially they would be voting twice. Is there any safeguard about that you know
I would
of?
submit that, once again, this is a Board of Elections issue, and
Yeah.
they will be allowed to vote with the permission of the Board of Elections. So it's a county issue. I think they have processes in place. I would submit that in the grand scheme of things, something like this has probably happened before.
You say it's a county issue, but it's our issue. It impacts us.
The management
It's
of...
not our fault, but it
Right.
impacts us.
The
and
management of
erodes
the
our
election.
trust.
The management of the election is a county issue. We do all understand the ramifications of votes not being counted, et cetera, but we will make our wishes known. We have made our wishes known, and we will continue to press to ensure that we have a full and fair election, that everyone who intended to vote for candidates and issues does have an opportunity to do so. All right? Thank you for your concern, Marion. I really appreciate it. Brian, you...
So I think
Yeah.
I'll just wrap that up by saying, one of the concerns I heard was, did it leak into the early voting, ballot boxes? So it's nice to hear that it was just 47 early, ballots that were on paper, and so I think that will be resolved. So I just want to remind people, voting starts at 6:30 a.m., polls stay open until 7:30 p.m. We still vote at Antioch University Midwest, and if you haven't already early voted, then make sure that you do vote, because this is a huge election. Okay?
Yep, lots of important things on the ballot. All right, any other announcements? Before we move on to the consent agenda, I do want to say that we have a lot of items on our agenda for this evening that could potentially take longer, more time than we anticipate. So I just encourage all of us to keep that in mind. Let anyone with citizen concerns do be aware that we will do our utmost best to stick to our timings with that, as well as the other items on the agenda. So, On that, to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda, first of which is minutes from the October 16th regular session. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Judy, we good with that? Moving on? All right. Next item on the consent agenda, minutes of the October 20th, 2023 special budget session. And can I get a motion for that?
I move.
Second, but I do want to suggest an amendment. There is a piece of the minutes where Carmen appropriately highlighted concern for staff doing all the work around the affordable housing piece. But one thing that was not mentioned was that Meg noted that Home Inc. had offered to help with research tasks. And so I think we should add that. I believe it's middle of the first page or whatever. And so I guess my recommendation is to just add that to that paragraph, Leatherman noted that Home Inc. had offered to help with research tasks.
All right. We have a motion for an amendment to the meetings. Can I get a second?
Second.
I should ask, are there any other discussion on the minutes from the October 20th meeting? Okay? All right, let's vote. Judy, if we could do a roll call vote on the proposed amendment to the
Sure.
minutes.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Thank you. Now you're going to have to re-vote on the approval, because you,
Yep.
yeah.
Now let's vote for the approved minutes. Can I get a motion? Or do we have to have a
The
motion
amended
second there?
minutes.
All right.
Who
so-
seconded the motion?
well,
You
I
didn't
think-
vote. That's right. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You can go ahead and vote.
I seconded the motion.
Right.
So it's all those in favor, yeah?
Yep, let's do the roll call.
Okay. McQueen.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yep.
Stokes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, you okay? I'll take a sip.
No, I was just getting there.
All right. All right, review of the agenda. And I do want to reiterate the fact that we do have a pretty packed agenda. We're going to be careful with our time moving forward. So is there anything on the agenda that have to be reconsidered or any potential additions to the agenda?
Yes. As some may have noted, the Ohio Municipal League is providing testimony to the state on the state of housing in people's communities. There was a meeting in Cincinnati that we missed last month. There's going to be a meeting in Marietta, Ohio on the 17th. We can submit written, I don't want to say testimony, written report about the state of housing and our concerns, and I would like to do that. And I'm willing to write up a short summary of what Yellow Springs has been facing in regard to housing. Gavin has indicated he'd be willing to sign on or edit proof it, and I'd like council's, well, I guess since I've started, I'd like council's permission to do that and have that come from the village.
Absolutely. Well, I support that. I don't think thank you, Mary Ann, for bringing that to our attention. Is there any other discussion before we acknowledge our support of Mary Ann moving forward with that first draft?
Well, you did get information from staff that they didn't have the bandwidth to assist in that. So that's,
So why not just put it on new business and
Okay.
have a brief?
I'm okay with that. Is there more information, Mary Ann, that you have to share?
That's what I had meant to do, yeah.
Okay, all right, let's put it on as new business. And so that's the one thing that we will add to this agenda, unless there's something else pressing that we need to add. So new business, housing. Yes, thank you. All righty. All right, closing out the review of the agenda, we have petitions and communications. Gavin, if you would be so kind.
Sure. There's a Veterans Genealogy workshop at Antioch College, flyers in the packet. The Yellow Springs Police Department monthly ticket report. Lisa Abel shared a couple documents about the CBE, the Center for Business and Education, creation and, sort of timeline history. The Greene County Public Health Department shared a traffic safety grant and MRC Award flyers that are in the packet, and Brian put the piece in the packet around the memo detailing the PDAC grant process, reporting back on the meeting with Carmen and staff members about our priorities.
All right. Well, thank you, Gavin, for that. Before we move into public hearings and legislation, I will entertain a motion allowing us to read the second reading on the one ordinance by title only. And can I get a motion for that, please?
I move.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
So
Yep.
you're applying that to the emergency readings as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I knew there was more than one, but yeah, thanks. All righty. Anything else before we move into legislation? All right, Judy, we have the second reading and public hearing of Ordinance 2023-35. Could we have that by title only, please?
Yes, indeed, amending sections 881.02, 881.03, 05.18, .27 within Chapter 881, Earned Income Tax Regulations effective beginning January 1, 2016, of the Codified Ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
All right. I'm assuming someone out there is going to start talking.
All right, so this is in front of you, of course, for second reading tonight to revise the income tax code. We talked about this last meeting. These are changes that were made by the state. The village, as a municipality, the income tax has to track those state changes. This is incorporating all the changes made by the General Assembly. They look extensive because there's a lot of pages of our code involved. They really aren't extensive. The biggest change is there's now an alternative apportionment formula for businesses with remote workers that allows a business to take their net profit, or to file a return for their net profit in a municipality where they have remote workers reporting to, and no responsibility on the business to report in municipalities where their remote workers might be actually performing the work. Any other questions on them? I'm happy to go through all of them if you'd like. That's really the only meaty one.
Yeah, well, I do appreciate the memo that you and Amy Kemper did. You're right, there was a lot of verbiage there, and I think the memo did really condense things down to a digestible size. We have any other questions or commentary from council? All right, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Anyone in the public, and again, offering the opportunity to council as well, have any comments regarding this piece of legislation? All right, hearing and seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing. All right, Judy, if we could call.
Well, and maybe I'll just, reemphasize, we discussed this in full at the last meeting. Ultimately, this is kind of housekeeping, This is just something that we need to do to follow, what our governor and the state has done. So, yep.
Yep. Thanks, Brian. And if I understand, and Amy, I don't know if you said this, but is this the one where Rita pretty much made sure we checked all the boxes and we're doing and saying everything appropriately?
Yes, credit where credit is due. We are a RETA community. They administer our income tax for us. They drafted the changes for all of their member communities, and then I just incorporated it into our code. And that's what you see in the packet.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other comments or concerns? All right. Hearing none. The public hearing is closed. And Judy, if you could call the roll.
Yes, Brown.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Motion is passed. All right, now we have first reading of ordinance 2023-36. Judy, if you could do that by title only.
This is approving the 2024 annual appropriations and declaring an emergency, Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you very much. Amy, go.
In your packet, you got a lovely memo, thank you, Gavin, for the editing, that hopefully simplifies the budget process. We've been through 2 meetings together, and the staff has spent many, many hours putting this together. You have Ordinance 2023-36 in front of you, which details out every budget and personnel item in each department for a total of $17,852,817 in expenses for 2024 budgeted. I can go through, I'm going to go a little bit more in detail about the overall budget, just so we're all on the same page and we all understand how the budget works. On your memo, there's a table. And the table shows the last 21, 22, 23 through September and 24's budget. I'm showing budgeted revenue versus expense, budgeted loss, and then what actually happens. So in 2021, we budgeted a loss of $952,000, but we ended up with $301,000 in a surplus, okay? Opposite direction. 2022, we budgeted a loss of $1,045,000, ended up with a surplus of $900,000. In 2023, so far, as of September 30th, and we'll go through those financials in just a minute, we are at a $500,000 surplus with a budgeted loss of $2.9 million is what we started out the original budget with. My point here is we budget for losses, but we manage to surpluses or break even. 2024 is budgeted for a $2.1 million loss. There are a lot of things in that budget that may or may not happen, but we did do some placeholders for council and budget meetings, so I just want to make sure everybody understands. We always manage towards zero. We're not going to lose $2 million, but we could, because we can budget that way. We can. We have that surplus to do that. Does anybody have questions on the overall budget? I had some good council questions today. Thanks for reading and asking.
Amy, I think for the public, if you could elaborate a little bit more about why we budget this way that potentially shows a loss. But
yeah, basically, in a government situation, you're going to be conservative with your revenue numbers, meaning you're going to under-budget them. And we are forced to under-budget some of them because the county auditor tells us what our numbers are going to be, and they're generally at 80-85% of actual. They're never going to tell you 100% because you can't overspend your revenues, right? We have beginning cash balances that allow us to do that sometimes, right? So the reason we sometimes over budget our expenses is, I'm thinking big projects. Like Johnny has the possibility of buying 6 transformers, and they're going to be $300,000 cheaper. I know they're not that expensive, but if we buy them this year instead of next year. So if we have that money in that budget, then that allows us to be flexible and efficient with the village money. Do we always do that? And do we always come back to council when we have a big purchase like that? Absolutely. So it keeps us from having to do supplementals every month. We only do them twice a month, twice a quarter, maybe once a quarter. We're trying to get down to once a quarter. So that, I think, makes us more efficient and more cost effective. Does that make sense? We started the budget process way back in April. Staff started in June and July. Council came in, Finance Committee came in, and then Council came in August and September and October. So we have time. We've looked at it multiple times. We've made multiple iterations, additions, changes.
So I think, Amy, maybe the other piece to highlight, which I appreciated that you put in your memo, is that while we could potentially deficit spend, and we haven't, the impact of deficit spending is...
So as a cash carryover balance, we'll go into it in September 30th, but the village has $11 million in their carryover. And that seems like a lot of money, but then you break it down into the 5 main categories of funds, and every one of those is restricted to use except general fund. And general fund right now, we're estimating, and it's a low estimate now, I know, because we started estimating in April, and now it's September, and I almost finished October. So the general fund has about 2.4 million in it. So everything else is restricted to purpose. So I can't spend, I can't go out and get a bunch of public works capital if I don't have the money in the electric fund, okay? And that's an enterprise fund. And as we go through the memo, it kind of highlights the importance of having that general fund be available so that if something big does happen, we need, I don't know, sewer lines all the way through the city because there was a huge crash, I don't know, something like that, then we would have the capital, the general fund available to point to that for a project. So that's kind of where the cash sits right now, and as we have gone over the last couple of years, those surpluses that I talked about, 300,000, 900,000, and 500,000 in 21, 22, and so far in 2023, are adding to that cash balance every year. So it's a good thing to have big chunks of money available for big projects. Although we get grants for a lot of them, there's matching that goes with it. There's opportunities to purchase. You'll see in the supplemental as we go through in a few minutes, there's a supplemental for the 2023 budget that's an opportunity to purchase in an efficient way with a lead time of 26 weeks. So.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I'll just kind of cap that off by saying that our general fund, and this is, according to the state, is very healthy. So we're not in any crisis mode by any means. And for those of you that track council meetings, we've talked about right-sizing budgets for a while. The idea is that unlike the state and the county, which likes to keep a lot of money in a rainy day fund and not invest in, critical infrastructure right now, what the village is doing is we're investing current taxpayer dollars in important projects while making sure that we meet the standards that the state has for having a healthy general fund. So I appreciate Amy, like all finance directors that I've liked, being open to not being overly conservative. So,
Well, yeah, I'm trying, and my goal is to tighten it up a little bit so that,
Yeah.
and Gavin's been the driver there in Finance Committee saying, what are the real numbers? But if we do that in a really intense way, it tends to backfire on you because then people say, oh, I got that money in my budget, I better spend it, they're going to take it away. We don't
Right.
want this, we don't want that. We
Yep.
want efficient, well thought out spending. There is one change to the budget that has been suggested. It's a $3,000 decrease in expense. It was my mistake to put it into the mediation fund, that it doesn't have to be there, so it's not substantial, but it is one thing that is not in your packet. So it'll be $3,000 less in expense.
It's always good. Okay.
Yeah, that's the right direction.
I'll just say briefly, we've had 2 budget sessions that are available for folks to watch online. I think we've had healthy discussions. I think we're, moving in the right direction in terms of, having good information, communicating about it, having good steps and process. So just basically saying I'm generally feeling good about where we're at and the sort of ongoing journey of figuring out how to, budget effectively and communicate about it together.
Right, good. And Gavin, as Amy suggested, you've been a stalwart, if you will, in because that's what you do in terms of handling finances and whatnot. A couple of years ago, we started talking about ways in which council could be more integrated into some functions of the staff. And I think this finance committee, Brian, that you and Gavin are on, I think is probably the best, if certainly not one of the best examples of how that has worked, how we've, council concerns and wishes and desires have been able to be integrated with what staff anticipates and is planning. So I think it's really been a win-win with the Finance Committee and the budgeting process. I've said before that we get better and better each time we do this. I don't know that there's a whole lot of room for improvement now, but I'm certainly pleased with the rate at which things went. We had planned on upwards of 3 meetings, and we got everything done in pretty good order with just 2 meetings. So again, kudos to the team, for taking a big lift and making it operate so effectively and efficiently. So thank you. All right. Any other budgetary? This was the first reading, so we will see this again. All right, so I'm going to close that one out, and we'll go on to the next piece of legislation, which is an emergency reading of Ordinance 2023-37. And Judy, if you could read that by title only.
This is repealing and replacing Section 242.01, composition, classification of the Codified Ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, to add the position of police recruit and declaring an emergency.
Can I get a motion?
I move.
Second?
All right. Looks like Paige is, and welcome back, Paige, from being away for a while. Happy to see you.
Yes. So this is the first part of, I believe, 3 parts total for what we've been talking about for the last 2 meetings. I don't really have much to add. It's pretty self-explanatory. We're adding the police recruit position to move forward with the police recruits. Any questions for me?
Questions up here? So this being an emergency reading, we will open the public hearing. So if anyone in the public, in the audience or otherwise wants to comment or have questions, now is the time to do so. All right, the public hearing is now closed. Council, any other questions regarding this emergency reading of this ordinance?
Well, I guess I'll just do what I think I've seen you do a lot in the past, which is just explain that I think this isn't an emergency in the sense that there's some sort of immediate thing that happens tomorrow. We're trying to move it quickly because we do have a sort of a problem that's built up around retention and hiring that we want to try to move quickly on because the situation isn't getting any better. Right. So just to clarify, there's not acute issue per se. It's more of like something that's built up and that it feels like it's worth addressing in a timely way.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, Gavin. All righty. That being said, we've closed the public hearing. We've fielded comments. Judy, may I ask you to call the roll?
Yes, Hausch.
Yes.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes?
McQueen.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. On to an emergency reading, once again, of a related issue. Emergency reading of ordinance number 2023-38. Judy, if you could read it by title only.
This is repealing and replacing Section 252.01, personnel classification of the Codified Ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, to create the position of police recruit and declaring an emergency.
All right. Can I get a motion?
So
I move. Second.
All right. I'm going to open the public hearing. Chief Burge, I presume that you would just do a ditto on this one? Okay. Any other comments from the public or from council?
Yeah, I would only say that, when we make these kinds of changes for a classified position, they are part of a list that's attached. So that comes with, certain expectations around salary and so forth. So, so it's a clear thing. So
Okay. All right, thank you for that addition, Brian. All right, hearing no other comments, Judy, may I ask if you would please call the roll?
Yes, Brown.
Yes.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we're now to emergency reading of ordinance 2023-39. Judy, if you read that by title only.
This is approving 2023 fourth quarter supplemental appropriations and declaring an emergency for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Thank you much, Judy. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
I will second it. All right, Amy, welcome back.
Supplemental appropriation, this is the first in the fourth quarter. We'll probably have one more in December to recognize the grants that came and went, but were paid directly. So that'll get our auditors happy with us. Issues on this supplemental. We had a small dollar amount to move the American Rescue Act funds that were received in 2022 from the wrong account to the right account, $782.85. We are moving, you'll see a negative $16,800 and a positive $16,800. We're moving some PD salary wages into professional services so that we can start working on getting those recruits while they're still in the academy. And that will get us 3 recruits, I believe. So we're trying to get that done so that she can start recruiting. Like you said, it's not an emergent situation. It's something that if we can start saying we have that benefit, that'll be easier to recruit. Youth Services Program, additional budget for street fair parking for the John Bryan Youth Center. That gives them more budget to spend this year for their hard work. This is the biggie. IRS penalty for 2021 late and incomplete filing of W-2s and 1099s. The total dollar amount, $42,840. We gave you a memo on that. If everybody got a chance to read it, I can go over it if you wish. Sounds like I need to go over it a little bit. Yes, no? High points?
Yep.
We just received a memo October 16th from the IRS. For 2021, W-2s were late filed in May of 2022 instead of January. That was a $9,240 penalty. Michelle and I have done some research. We found that we did file them in January electronically. We have proof of that, so Amy Blankenship's going to help us with our refusal appeal letter to the IRS, but we have to pay the penalty now, and that's the reason we need the supplemental, and then they'll pay us back when they say, oh, you're right, or argue with us for another 6 or 8 months. The 1099 W-2s were incomplete filed. There was 120 forms that were filed without tax IDs or with improper addresses, and that is a $33,600 penalty. And that was Michelle and I have fixed that for 2022. We went and got all new W-4s from all the vendors. We did not submit any 1099s. We do not pay anyone unless we have a W-2. Sorry. Everybody knows when they need a new vendor, we're like, here's the form. If you want them to get a check, you got to go get it. So that had not happened for the past couple, 21 and 20. I know that they filed with incomplete. We've only gotten dinged for 21, so I don't think we can refute this penalty. Amy and I haven't had a chance to talk in detail, but they're right. So, so the big story here is we need to pay that, or have that budget added to our budget so that we can pay that penalty.
So the street fair parking, is that the $1,276.50?
Yes.
Okay. And the $782.85 under transfers in
That's
advance?
the American Rescue Act funds.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah, that's right, the thing that we had, I saw that. And then why is it 5840 instead of 42840? What's the, 8,000 difference there?
It's 42,840, because all the 101s are together, meaning the general fund ones. So there's an increase in reader retainer budget we need of $8,000 gets
Gotcha.
added to that.
Okay.
And the reason we need that is because REIT is at 3% of income tax collected. We collected more income tax than we budgeted for retainer, if that
Okay.
makes any sense. So we need additional just to cover November, December's payments to make sure that they can have their retainer. That's a
Okay,
good
so
problem.
I understand that the 9,240 should come back because we've got documentation for filing those W-2s. So where does the liability for the 33,600 lie?
Yeah.
With the village, right?
Well, with the former finance director and the former village manager.
Sure, yeah, so it's on us.
Yeah.
Well, but wait, I mean, but
We knew about
I'm
it.
asking this,
I'm
so.
sorry, go ahead.
When I first
that's a
started,
pointed question.
I was told about it, and we were told it was corrected. There's not much you can do to correct 1099s. If you didn't do them right the first time, you didn't do them right, period. There's no amended, especially if it's, a year and a half later. So all you can do is go forward. With the W-2s, they were done appropriately. They were filed down by the accounting department downstairs on January 26th. So we feel like they were mistaken. They said we filed by paper in May, which we never filed by paper, but when we have electronic proof, the Social Security Administration website is where you upload those, and we have proof to it, so.
So, but when a mistake like that is made and your finance director tells you that they did it appropriately, is there any?
So, we are talking about pulling the former finance director's bond and holding that bond accountable to these fees and a few
Okay.
others.
Okay,
But that's litigation right now, so we can't really,
Yeah,
right.
all right. But, I think we should just understand that there's
Thank you.
potential redress for something like
There
that.
is.
Okay.
Yep. The last item on there, not the least item, is explain them, the reclosers and regulators or something.
I'll take this one.
Yeah. Something electrical.
$49,000 on the electric is for reclosers for the switch stations. We have got a fabulous price for 23 if we can secure them. If not, in 24, they go up 20%. We have funds left over in the capital for electric because we did not do Walnut Street because we don't know what the final school is doing. After the vote, we would know. But there's also some things that they could be doing on Walnut Street. So we pushed that project back, and we're taking those funds, putting them for the reclosers. This will allow us, if you remember, I talked about a part that one of the reclosers needed. It's $20,000 for a temporary part versus $30,000 for a brand-new board with the update controls. So we needed some more finances to be able to purchase all the reclosers, and including the next circuit that's going out, we're going to go ahead and pre-buy those because we're going to be putting that in eventually. So that way we can all be on the same page and it can all be done electronically through the computer system.
And your equipment is 26-week lead time.
As 26, that's the
That's the big
fastest
one.
we'll get it, is 26. And we are getting by with the parts and pieces of one that is broken right now, so we would like to get this on the way so we can get those changed out. And staff is going to be doing the work.
Good.
Is it normal that it takes 26 weeks? or
Right
is-
now, transformers are 54 weeks out
Okay.
because of the backup of COVID and then the parts and the pieces. Transformers, we used to be able to get about 8 to 10 weeks out, and the ones that we order for DDC was 54 weeks out, and we've still not seen them yet. So the lead time is, we ordered water parts, just to give you another, on the water side, we ordered meter parts for water meters almost 9 months ago and still have not received them for the brass.
So financially, what'll happen is they'll place the order, we'll open the purchase order, and it will stay open through 2024 until they receive them. So it's going to be one of those encumbrances at the end of the year that aren't spent yet, but are restricted as to use.
Correct.
Or promised as a contract. Yep.
Well, good. I definitely like what I'm hearing in terms of, the Walnut Street project, for example, being nimble and thinking, maybe we won't have to do that right now.
Correct.
And moving funds otherwise. So, again, just kudos again to the team managing our finances well. All right. Anything else, Amy? Okay. All right, thank you very much. Any other commentary? And I hope I did open the public hearing. I feel like I did. Any other comments from the public or anything else from council? All right, thank you very much. Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
McQueen.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
All righty.
Kevin, I'm standing here because I'm going to go out of order. There's just one piece that goes with the supplemental. It's 2375.
Okay.
So if we do that one real quick, and then we can go back to the order.
All right, Judy, if you could read by title only, resolution number 2023-75.
Yes, this is acknowledging transfer of funds for the fourth quarter of 2023.
All right, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All right, thank you.
Again, this is housekeeping. It's the ARPA funds that were booked in 2022 to the general fund instead of the restricted fund, so I'm just moving them out, and as the auditor had requested, anytime we move money out of the general fund into a restricted fund, they want a separate resolution so that everybody is aware that we are restricting monies.
All right, thank you very much for that, Amy. All right, we've had motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you very much. Now back to ordinance number 2023-40. Judy, if you could read that by title only.
And what a title it is. Authorizing the interim village manager to execute a Western Area Service Group, WASG, power pool schedule with American Municipal Power Ohio Incorporated, AMP Ohio, in order to arrange for capacity and associated energy output from AMP Ohio and approving a Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio Master Services Agreement.
Okay. All right, can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Johnny?
This is Amy. Oh, no, I'm sorry. So this is, we are part of the WASG pool for AMP, so we're on the western side. This is an agreement that they had in 2006. They want to update it to 2023. It's a master agreement for the things that we're already being charged for. They want a master agreement, to give you a real fast overview. It's nothing that we can change, to be honest with you. It's things that are already being done.
So that's what I wanted to confirm. I mean, we can't really,
We can't
do
We can
anything.
talk about it all day long, but we can't change it.
Okay. So one thing I noticed is in the third whereas, it talks about forming a combined pool, but I think we should change form to like continue or something, because that's where I got kind of confused is like, did we have any standing for, changing this up? So anyway, but otherwise it makes sense to me.
So if you just strike after members, strike desire to form
Desire
combined
to,
pool.
I
so-
think desire to continue, makes sense, but, if someone's got a better word.
Well, if you just go, those members desire to jointly purchase, manage, and coordinate their,
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's cool. Yep.
That's a good. All right, so that was a motion.
Yeah, so I guess I'll make a motion to amend the third whereas to indicate that this is an existing entity.
Can I get a second on the amendment?
Second.
All right, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Okay, Thank you very much. Any other changes? Any other conversation? All righty. So, so we've got a motion and a second for the ordinance. And we've covered the amendment. So now we're going to go ahead and vote on the.
Did you open your public hearing?
I don't feel like I did. I think I was worn out by the title. All right, we're going to open the public hearing. We'll field any comments from the public regarding the ordinance that's on the table. So are there any comments from the public or any additional comments or questions from council? All right, hearing none, I am closing the public hearing, and now we will vote.
All right.
And Judy, if you could call the roll, please. Thank you.
Yes. Brown.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Resolution number 2023-72, if you could read that, Judy, by title only,
This is
please.
approving shift differential compensation for police department employees.
All right, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second?
All right, thank you very much. Chief?
Part 3 of 3. What we've been talking about, continued. So this will keep us competitive with some of the larger agencies. We'll obviously never be able to keep up with the wage scales, but this is one of the things that's pretty standard across the board when you're trying to keep up with the big agencies. I kind of equate it to if you use your personal car for work, you get a little bit of a mileage stipend. This is kind of using your personal bodies for those tougher shifts, the overnights and the weekends. This is the stipend for that. So, any questions?
So it makes total sense. I'm wondering how it was that you chose the amounts. I mean, if it were me, I probably would have raised it. So is that?
Would you
sort
like
of
me to raise it?
Is that
what I heard.
a standard
It's
amount, differential?
That is a fair amount, is what I will say, considering our size and our budget. We wanted to make sure that we weren't being ambitious. So what's it equate to total? Like $4,000 something
Yeah.
that we were able to accommodate, if that makes any sense. So trying to be responsible.
Great.
So in response to your question, where I'd like you to raise it, I would support raising it.
I appreciate that.
We're going to vote on this. And do know that when you come back again, we will still be supportive.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. All right, thanks,
Thanks.
Keith. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, let's go ahead and vote. Judy, if you can call the roll.
You can do it by voice vote if you want. I'll call the roll if you prefer.
I'm going to do it by voice vote. All in favor of this resolution, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, the motion is passed. Thank you very much. Now on to resolution number 2023-73, Judy, by title only.
This is approving the position of digital media manager.
All right, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
All righty. Is
I'll start, and then Amy Blankenship can help me as well.
Okay.
This is something that we have talked about for a while, but especially since I've become interim village manager, about trying to get communication better, website better, a different website, having a designed website, Facebook, social media, helping with grant writing, all kinds of different things. And this is the position that we want to put on the full-time position for the digital media. And they'll be doing all kinds of things. I mean, we've done a lot in the last 2 months.
so it's almost like we're sort of catching up.
We are catching up, and I'd say that we used to have 2 part-time people doing this. Philip O'Rourke did it. Ben come in. Before Ben, it was Lacey. And then Josue did a lot of posting himself. I don't do social media. I haven't done social media for about 4 years. Erica is busy doing other things. So having one person dedicated to it, that way the message is always consistent. My staff is now reaching out to him. They don't have to go through me. They have permission to go to Ben so we can get out to Keith Alley that has been trying to be restriped now for 3 or 4 times and nobody's listening to us. We can put it out there and it's an email to Ben and Ben gets it right up there.
Good. Excellent, excellent. Great. Well, thank you, Johnny. Council, any questions, comments, concerns?
So, okay, I mean, I think it's great. When I looked at the budget, I reached out to Amy. I also talked to Johnny about this today. So I think one thing that, I mean, I love that we're moving on this, and I think we've indicated that we want more in terms of communications and whatnot. What's a little bit confusing to me is typically when we have a full-time position, a contract comes back to council, and right now we're just talking about adding this to the org chart. But I guess one thing that, Johnny and I talked a little bit about is like where this position falls into play, and, what the ultimate, full-time salary is going to be and so forth. So here's some thoughts I have. One is I know that many council members have mentioned interest in having more of a communications role. So I'd like to be involved in, what this looks like. And a great example is, Johnny, you mentioned the website, which, I mean, is super important, and we've all said, needs to happen. I guess I just want to make sure that we're, kind of directing this role in a way that's going to be productive to our taxpayers and make the most sense. And so, it's easy enough to send the camera out to every event in the community, which I love, but that might not be the highest purpose. So I just kind of want to mention that piece. The other thing I want to highlight is what kinds of things we think do and don't make sense. So for example, Johnny mentioned Philip. He used to set up events on the Village website, for the Village Inspiration and Design Award. So do we want those kinds of things to happen? Do we want to, make sure that Carol at the newspaper knows about the Touch a Truck event and that sort of thing? So anyway, I guess I just want us to think about, what is the best use of that time. And so Johnny, I know that, while this comes under your department, I guess I want to make sure that we're all aligned on, how this role accomplishes the various goals that we have. So.
And currently, go ahead.
And so I wanted to say and give a shout out to what you've been doing. I have heard so much feedback from community members about how the Facebook page is looking, how things are being communicated on Channel 5. For me, 2 people working 20 hours a week is a full-time position. I think that the service that you're providing and the things that we're seeing from you are invaluable with regard to communication. So that's my take on it, and I'm in support of it, only because, well, not only because from the interactions that we've had, and also because of the feedback from community. And having someone as capable as you are in the position is a benefit for all of us.
And for the listening public, Carmen is referring to Ben, our station manager.
And I'm pointing over there. No one sees me. I'm pointing
Over there, yeah.
Well, and it might be time to mention, too, that Amy's spoken about bringing a social media policy back before council, possibly before the end of this year. into which some of those things would fall. And I will also say that staff alone are running that man right off his feet. And even if he did nothing but things that staff would like him to do, like new platform, he would be completely busy.
Yeah, well, not just staff. I mean, council has supported these activities for the last 10 years at least.
So there used to be, Brian, I'm responding to your, desire to be more involved. So, and you and I were both on this village managers standing committee for public access.
Community access.
Community access. So perhaps we can discuss, once we move forward with this resolution, reconstituting some sort of, John, at your discretion, village manager, public access, blah, blah, blah kind of thing. I think, to Judy's point, Ben's, pretty engaged right now with things that staff has him doing. So do we feel like something like that, reconstituting that group might be appropriate going forward?
It was a good group. A lot of things spun out of it.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Well, I would not propose that we do anything about that right now. Just know that the desire is there for being engaged. And it was sort of, I don't want to talk about the logistics of the group, whether it's ad hoc or regular, but why don't we just sort of, as time goes on, come back and revisit how we reconstitute that, who wants to be on it. I don't know, maybe after elections. Yeah, maybe later on in the year, we'll talk about that. All right, so I think that's a good thing. I think we do want, just like we talked earlier about the effectiveness of the Finance Committee, that integrating, staff and council has really worked out, and perhaps, this public access group could yield some of the same type of benefits. Okay? All right. Any other comments, questions, concerns before we move forward with the resolution? Okay. All righty. So we've had a motion and a second, and this is resolution number 2023-73. If everyone in favor of passing this resolution, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the resolution is passed. Thank you very much. And now, resolution number 2023-74. Judy, you can do that by title only.
This is naming Kyle Calhoun as municipal representative to the Greene County 911 Review Committee.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
second?
All right, thank you very much.
This is me again. So this is the 911 Review Committee. They are actively trying to get this committee up and running in the next 6 months, and the village had an opportunity. There's only one slot on the whole board of commissions for this, that we could have chose somebody from Yellow Springs, from Fairborn, Xenia, and all this for this seat. We are all extremely busy. It has to be an elected official. Jamestown reached out to us, and they would like for us to back Jamestown to be able to have them as a small community member. Also look out for the smaller community members. The rest of the board is made up of Beaver Creek, because they are a majority holder. They have a 911 center as well. Greene County holds 2 or 3 positions on this. There's nobody that is on there to represent the small people like us, Cedarville, Jamestown, Bowersville. So I put this in front of council to get your opinion.
So is this, so when I first saw that, I certainly hearkened back to the villages that we
Correct.
talked about.
Correct.
Like I said, us, Jamestown, Cedarville, the smaller villages on this side of the county that don't often have as much of a voice in certain groups, and this one in particular. So that was presumably the rationale for reaching out to them?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, I'll give a shout out for Jamestown, who, as we learned from those meetings around considering a joint dispatch, their elected officials are very willing to speak up to the county and, advocate for themselves and other smaller communities. So I think it's a great suggestion.
Okay. All right, good. Well, all right, let's put it to a vote. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. The issue is passed. Thanks again for all the comment and participation. And we're skipping over 75 because we already did it. Now we're reading resolution number 2023-76. Judy, if you do that by title only.
This is approving the annual distribution of flour and sugar to village widows and widowers.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Anybody want to talk about this?
We will be ordering flour and sugar tomorrow if this passes. Erica has been compiling the list. Again, Ben put it out on social media. We've got some responses, adding some individuals to the list. So starting tomorrow, we'll have an accurate count, and we'll be ordering from Tom's Market, and then staff will get it on the 20th and pass it out the 20th, 21st, and 22nd prior to Thanksgiving.
Okay. Great. And you did say, Johnny, or I heard from someone who said that there's a proactive process for reaching out to folks who are eligible but who would prefer to pass
To
that gift
donate,
on.
correct. And then we will come back after it's all done to let council and the villagers know how much was donated and went to what location.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think a great evolution of the program, of course, has been that widowers as well as widows can receive flour and sugar. And, this really kind of highlights what our village is about. If anyone ever looks up Yellow Springs, probably one of the first things you're going to see is, attributes to the fact that Willingham left this legacy that the village has continued. And it's why we love to live here. And great to see it happening again this year. So thanks to the team.
All right.
And thanks to the village.
Thank you for that commentary. All right. All that being said, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. The issue is passed. All right. We are now to... Now, Chief, we're going to acknowledge you leaving. Now we are to citizen concerns. If there's anyone in the public that has comments, concerns, questions regarding any item that is not currently on the agenda, now is the time for you to speak up. You will be allowed 3 minutes to share those comments, and we welcome those comments. Are there any citizen concerns?
I have a quick question. How do we address chat notifications is this something that we do or don't do?
No, I mean, we generally don't unless it's a really quick.
Okay. Just wanted to know. It's there, and I just wanted to ask a question. Thank
It's
you.
the one that I.
Thank you.
Seen, right?
You could elevate it, though.
The answers.
But during COVID, when we were all online, we did incorporate the chat, and then
Sure.
when we shifted, we
Okay.
moved away from that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
And Judy, I'm sure you're not seeing anything alarming?
Well, no, if it's simple to answer, I'll answer it. There's a question, I don't know the answer, so I'm not answering it.
All right.
Okay.
If you're happy, I'm happy. All right. I see motion happening, or,
I have a few things to say.
sure, come on up.
Turn?
Oh,
Yes, I will. Go
absolutely.
ahead.
Anyway, yeah, most of you know my name's Wayne Gould and live 224 Corey Street. My topic tonight is not the alley or anything like that. It's RETA, Regional Income Tax people, and their penalties for late filing. I've not attended any recent council meetings since maybe this has come up before. I don't know. If it has, let me know, and I can skip through the particulars. But my wife, Betty, worked in Dayton, Ohio during the years of 2019 and 2022, part-time, backstage, while we lived in Yellow Springs. The local income tax was promptly withheld from her check, paid in Dayton fully. Given the tax rates and credits, the entire amount went to Dayton, and so we owed nothing to Yellow Springs. Even though Dayton is first in line to get that money, they don't require any return to be filed. So naturally, when I filed for those years, I filed federal, state, school district income taxes. I didn't see the need to file any other income taxes at that time because we owed no other tax to anybody else. 4 years later, just recently, RETA sent out a letter that I now needed to file, which I dutifully did for the past 4 years. More recently, I got a RETA penalty notice about being late in filing and a bill for that, $300, which I have paid. Now, first, let me apologize for my failure to not file in a timely fashion, but I have to ask, how were we supposed to find out about the need to file? We properly paid what was owed to the entity it was owed to. We properly followed their procedures for, in this case, not filing. When did Yellow Springs suddenly require us to file, although we owed them nothing? And they penalized us then for not doing what we didn't know we had to do. And so, and we had no reason to even think otherwise. None whatever, no clue. Several questions I got, and I don't know who to ask. Maybe, this is a while ago, but who made the decision for RETA all of a sudden send out these notices? I'm not the only person in town who's gotten one of these, I understand. There's other people as well. Was it RETA or was it Yellow Springs?
When you get done, you'll receive
Okay.
the answer.
Next question. Who decided there should be a penalty for late filing? RETA or Yellow Springs? Finally, who decided what the penalty should be? RETA or Yellow Springs? See that? Finish right on time.
Good on you.
Thank you.
I could guess an answer, but
The answer to that is neither. The State of Ohio General Assembly made those determinations. Our entire tax code was written by the state in 2016, adopted subsequently after a lot of litigation. There was a lot of fighting in the state as to whether or not the General Assembly had the right to, to sort of take the field and require all cities and villages to use the same income tax code. In the end, it was determined that they did have that right, they the state, and so our code is drafted by the state. RETA doesn't draft it and the village doesn't draft it. We just enact what the General Assembly drafts. Does that answer the question?
Probably, but I think, so the decision to send out the notices was made by, do you know?
Well,
Okay.
that's the one that's not answered.
So I can probably help you out. I've had calls from a couple other people in the exact same circumstance. We've owed nothing. It's not unusual for municipalities to require a zero tax filing at the end of the year. They don't get information. They get a W-2. That's all they get, right? So they're not going to match it together. I have gone to RETA on behalf of other taxpayers and said, can you repeal these fines? And they will do that. So if you want to give me a call, I'll talk to her. It is up to the village as to what, the circumstances.
Well, I wrote a groveling letter to them as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
You can always contact the village. I mean, Rita does all our work for us, but they still do it for us, so.
Oh, is that, yeah,
Yeah.
that's confusing, I tell you.
Yeah.
I got used to not filing, and the penalty was more than that he made one of those years.
Yeah. I had another gentleman have the same circumstance, and his is pending right now. I haven't checked to see if they've approved it, but yeah.
So Amy, I guess to the question about who decides to send out the notices, so.
I don't know, honestly.
Okay.
I don't know if Rita just does it as part of what they do for us. I mean, they do a lot of things that, because we don't have our own tax department, they're required to do that for us, and I don't know how much is legislated that they do, so.
So to be clear, you not knowing, we didn't proactively ask for it to be done, nor do we select the amounts of the fines. I think those are your other two questions, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
thank you.
Yeah, and anyone can contact the office, and we'll help you out, walk you through it, whatever.
Great.
Thanks.
Well, both Amy's, thank you very much. Neither of those were the guesses that I was going to make.
Well, good to not answer if you don't know the answer.
Thank you. It was worthwhile. Thank you. Very, very helpful. Thanks. All righty. Any other citizen concerns? Hi, come on up.
Lisa Abel, speaking, I guess, as the interim director for the community, or the Yellow Springs Community Development Corporation. In your packet, there's embedded in the hundreds and hundreds of pages that you get to read. There's I thought it'd be helpful to give you a timeline of the Center for Business and Education, how that came about, and I want to say, the discussion started with a council request for a steering committee to assess the potential for a new commerce park in 1998. And I don't think that was any accident that was the same year that Home Inc. started. I think there was a general awareness in the community that we needed to address jobs and we needed to address housing. It's not? It's 25 years?
I was on the original board, and I know how it started. I think it was coincidental that the two started at the same time.
Okay. So council was, from the beginning, interested in a new commerce park. Shortly after that, Community Resources formed. They had an agreement with the township on sharing revenues from the commerce park. The group purchased land from Renee. The bulk of the purchase costs came from the revolving loan fund that was from the village, and a grant from the foundation. And then the Community Resources secured about $1.4 million in grants to continue infrastructure to the site. At some point, those grants were lost, or at least one of the grants was lost. Council approved a $1 million bond to continue the infrastructure. So again, we're seeing village council support. And then some ugly stuff happened, and then Community Resources dissolved. The village then went ahead and extended utilities to the site. A couple years later, Cresco purchased land and built their facility there, and so here we are today with questions about what should be done at that site besides what it was intended for. And I understand, if you live here long enough, you see nothing happening, oh, a little bit happens, nothing happens, nothing happens. But we're at a once-in-a-generation point in time where we have manufacturing in large job numbers and in good-paying jobs coming back to the state, with Intel, with Honda LG batteries, with Joby Aviation and others. And that's 3 minutes?
It seems short to me, too, but maybe it's because I'm old.
Okay.
Just if you can do a sort of a summary wrap-up.
Well, I wanted to address the idea of putting housing on the site. There's the covenants and restrictions The very first prohibited use out of 26 is residential for a reason. I think living near, this is from National Institute of Health, living near industrial activity is associated with perceived disorder, powerlessness, and depression, mental health impacts. If true equity and health impacts are to be achieved, minority and low-income neighborhoods should be chosen less often than other neighborhoods for the siting near or on industrial facility sites. So, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm inclined to ask, I was away and there was some meeting, but if I shouldn't bring it up, I won't, but
I think we can talk about that in the context of the manager's report.
okay.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, the times have changed, and so
Okay.
I think we should talk about that a little bit.
Okay, good enough. Duly noted. Thank you much. All
I want
righty.
to continue on that topic.
All righty.
It has been on the radar for housing for decades, but it has also been the same for the Commerce Park. And the reason that it's not in the comp plan now is because we have the Commerce Park. But if you go back in the comp plans previously, there were lots of studies that were done for a place to put the Commerce Park. We even talked about Sutton Farm at one point. So with all the people involved in getting this Commerce Park, having been on council at the time when we used the revolving loan fund to loan community resources this money, and then subsequently coming back to 2015 when I started in my zoning role, getting a call from community resources saying they want to give the land to the village and forego the loan because of what you read in that history of the things that happened with the referendum and that kind of stuff, which for staff, as a staff member at the time, it was like handcuffing us and then throwing us into the deep end and telling us to swim. There was nothing staff was going to be able to do. How are we going to be able to develop this Commerce Park? But because the referendum was we could not spend the money to bring in the road, but we got lucky. We got Cresco. And Cresco was willing to pay for the road and to bring the infrastructure from what people in the community called the road to nowhere to Cresco. And they're clear at the back of the property, and the reason that they're clear at the back of the property is because they had to be 500 feet from a church, a school, and churches and schools, I think, were it, but not higher education. So the only marketing that has ever been done since Cresco was done very little by me, and that was a request that we get ourselves in Jobs Ohio and get on Zoom Prospector, and it was a huge application process that we went through for staff. I mean, you were out there. He had a cherry picker, taking a picture of the road. We figured out all the capacity for utilities. We created a flyer, and then we put it on Zoom Prospector at the state of Ohio. But the problem with that location or that site is it's more for like 50 acres, 100 acres, 200 acres, and more heavy manufacturing. And so for a few years, since 15, I kept asking, why are we not marketing this? Why are we not marketing this? And I wouldn't get a response back. Oh, good idea, we should do that, but we didn't. And so now you went through getting the Community Improvement Corporation. Now you've got YSDC. This is the time. This is the time to market it. I mean, it just blows my mind that we have this main road that comes in here, and thousands of people have come into this town. I can tell you none of those people know that that's a Commerce Park. We don't even have a business center sign up. We don't have anything that tells anybody that they could actually put a business there. And there might have been some people in those cars that might have our values and would want to be here, but we don't know that. So let's stop
and let's focus on getting some industry back here. We need it badly. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Feel like we should let that soak in for a while. All right. Any other? Yes. All right. Emily?
I'm Emily Seibel, and I am here as the Executive Director of Home Inc. And I just wanted to add some context to the discussion, and I'm happy to weigh in later, or if you're going to discuss it as part of the manager's report, I can wait. What would you, do you want me to talk now or talk later?
You should talk now. And I mean,
Okay.
I guess, I don't know that we really are ready for a discussion anyway. So, I mean, I said manager's report, but yeah, I mean, I don't think council's having a discussion about it, but the community is, so please.
Yeah, and I wasn't even planning on talking unless it came up kind of organically. So basically, Yellow Springs Home Inc. and the Village are exploring the CBE to evaluate whether it's worth the time and money to consider an application for a future low-income housing tax credit project together, and we're exploring that sort of together for 2024, and that application would be due in February. So it is kind of a tight turnaround. Neither the Village or Home Inc. have made this determination yet, so we don't there's no project proposal. And I just want to be clear about that. there are no drawings. I just created a folder on my hard drive a few days ago that said, like, question mark this site. So this is all very new. And we don't know if we have time for zoning to be in place, because that comes with a lot of things, and we don't even know what those things are in terms of the restrictive covenants, et cetera. So here's where we're at. Family rentals affordable to our workforce are identified as the top local housing need, as confirmed by the Bowen Housing Needs Assessment and the Yellow Springs Village Council. And, at Home Inc., we have a growing rental interest list. We have over 300 households on it. There's real pent-up demand. Tax credits are needed, and they're going to be needed to create a large-scale rental family development. And the funding is really competitive. As you know, I've stood up here over the course of a decade saying we're trying to figure this out. So without tax credits, it's really going to be difficult. It's going to be probably impossible to develop affordable family rental housing of scale. And so the scoring changes biannually a lot and a little bit annually. We score the whole village every year, and to see if there's any possibility, because you have to score really in the top, 10%, 20% because it's expensive and it takes a lot of time to put together an application. So this year, the scoring is favorable on the CBE site, and that's the only site that is, we feel like has a shot for the 2024 funding round, and so we're exploring. Affordable workforce housing is important to attracting industry. Housing and jobs go together. And even the materials that were submitted talked about that, how to expand the tax base. You got to have jobs and housing. And so we understand both are really important, and we're just seeing if a both and option is possible, and it may not be. So at this time, the CBE is the highest scoring site in the state of Ohio that our partners at St. Mary have discovered to date. This doesn't guarantee success, but it does create a real possibility. So after vetting every site in the village, that site is the only one that scores high enough to think about an application. And that's based on an opportunity index mapping tool, which has points in the application and is also the tiebreaker for funding this year. And it should be noted that the scoring criteria are still in draft form at this time, but given the timeline, we felt like we needed to just start the conversation sooner rather than later. And I mean, Home Inc., like I said, has not approved this as a project that we are pursuing. It's still very much in the is it possible? Does it make sense? Are there alternatives? Due diligence phase. So all of Yellow Springs is considered very high opportunity, according to the Kirwan Institute Opportunity Index Map.
Only 3 minutes is up there.
I can stop if you want.
I think that's good context.
I think we'll talk more.
Yeah, so I guess what I could just say like a few, so the CBE land score is higher in transportation, housing, and employment. There are no other sites that warrant an application this year. We're trying to evaluate some of just the pros and cons of this site. I'm trying to expedite this here.
Well, I think I plan on talking during the manager's report, so
Okay.
I suggest that you wrap it up and then we have.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, so this would be a project of at least 50 units. That's the floor. We need at least $11 million in gap funding to even have a shot at moving something like this forward. This is the first time it's come up in about the 10 years that I've been running Home Inc. So that's why we brought it to your attention. And like I said, we're just trying to work with you to see if this makes sense to move forward. We're not demanding or proposing even at this point. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're on the road. Come on up.
Hi, Dino Pallotta, local resident. Let's talk about the Center of Business and Education, not residential. You all were in the work session with me and YSDC a few months ago. We discussed marketing of village land for Honda Battery, Intel, Google, and their supply chain businesses. It was agreed that the CBE was prime for these types of businesses and business tax dollars. We all agreed to that. We can go to the map, we can go through it and see, that's what we all talked about. This land is our biggest asset in the village. We want business tax dollars from the industrial park, which are huge tax dollars, unlike residential, which in the end costs us more. You may recall, Brian, probably Mary Ann, a long time ago, we had a conversation, Krista McGraw was up, and she was talking about different, with agriculture, with business, and with residential, what the tax breaks are. We could go over that at a later date, but she was very eloquent in saying what's bringing the most dollar value, and the residential brings us the least dollar value to the village for us, tax dollars. Next, who's going to be living in the industrial park? I guarantee they will be complaining about the following. They're going to be complaining about noise, light, 3 shifts, odor. What are you going to do about that? Ask Cresco and other businesses to cease and desist and be a good neighbor and curtail your hours? That's not going to happen. It's an industrial park for a reason. That's why we set it up that way. Furthermore, issue 2 is tomorrow. And if recreational marijuana passes, then what? Are we going to stop Cresco from producing and growing more? Probably not. More importantly, as of tomorrow, you guys are a lame duck. I have 1 person that's out. You got 2 people that are being reelected, that are up for reelection. How can you make a decision like this during this period with this magnitude? Let the new council handle it. That's where it should be. That's where the appropriate place for it is. Turning to home making what Emily was talking about. She brought up, you're under a time crunch. That's pretty commonplace that you have to do this for them to make an application if they're going to do that by February. That's a pretty hard decision to make, to get through, going through planning commission, going through everybody to make a snap decision like that. It's not a good business decision at this point. You got to really delve into it. More importantly, on the application process, and this is the biggest thing I think I'm looking at. In the application process, how long is that, if you would go along with this, how long is that land going to be locked up? By that, it's not going to be able to be used. They're going to be under application. You're going to lock up the land. Have you even considered if it's going to get locked up, how long it's going to be? Look what's happened behind the fire station. They've been approved. Everything's a go, yet nothing's getting going, and we still don't have the final numbers of what it's going to cost the village on infrastructure, what we're going to owe on that. And yet, we're going to start looking at another parcel of land to lock up. That's just not a smart business. It's not a smart business plan, especially if you're going to lock up land with all these businesses on the horizon coming. Then they won't be able to come. Then what? Furthermore, what kind of discounts are you going to offer on the land to Home Inc.? You know, what kind of you're going to give a discount on the land? We're going to waive of tap-in fees and further infrastructure fees, etc. You're not in that position anymore of being the luxury of just giving away anything. Lastly, Cresco has given us a lot, and they've done a lot for the village. We don't need to agitate them. Again, this is not a matter of a good neighbor policy by Cresco. This is an industrial park, which makes the village a lot of money. If issue 2 passes, they're only going to grow their business. The bottom line, this is potentially a bad business decision for the village. Look elsewhere. Look elsewhere within the village and leave the CBE alone for business growth and business dollars. Thank you.
Good to know. Appreciate that. All righty. There are other humans in the room. Anyone else have concerns? All right. Anything from council? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your concerns, for your concern for all things in the village. All right, we're moving on to special reports, and Amy Kay, you're up yet again.
Third quarter financials. You each got a little PowerPoint summary. We've done these. This is the third one now, and they're very similar to each other. We just keep adding the information. Want to make sure everybody understands the ins and outs. So the first graph is the revenue analysis, and I'm comparing budget to actual for just revenue, and having that red line below the blue is a good thing. We're $1.6 million ahead in revenue from what we budgeted in 2023 as of September 30th. Graph number 2 is just the expense side. The red line, the blue below the red, is a good thing still. We are $3 million less in budget. Actual expenses are $3 million less than budget as of September. And if you take the revenue, actual minus the expense, and we talked about this a little bit in the budget, the actual gain through September 30th is $502,011 versus a budgeted loss of a little over $4 million with all our supplementals. We'll go on to page 3, which is the statement of cash from revenue and expense. So this is a mini income statement for each of the funds by themselves. Tells you what cash we started with, what's the actual revenue, what's the actual expense, and the current cash balance. And then that year-to-date encumbrance means those are things in POs right now that we potentially could spend before the end of the year, or even into next year if we leave the PO open, like that contract we talked about for the regulators and reclosers. See, I gotcha. And then it tells you the unencumbered cash balance. That means that's potentially the lowest number we would have at the end of September. So that's for each different fund that we have. That kind of tells you where the balances are in each fund as of September 30th and where it was in the beginning of the year versus where it is in the end of the year, is the very last column. So page 2 is just more funds as we keep going down through all the different funds we have. And so the beginning cash balance was $10,988,000 or $10,988,000, and it's increased to $11,500,000 as of September 30th. We have encumbrances right now of $3.2 million. So that takes that $11,500 minus the $3.2 million, takes us down to $8.2 million potentially at the end of September, which reduces our cash balances by $2.7 million. So that's what we talked about. Those encumbrances may or may not happen. I just talked to staff today. I said, hey, it's November. If you got POs out there that you know we're not going to need this year because we're not going to do that project, we're going to start closing those, and those encumbrances will start to drop. Some of them will stay, and we'll actually have new POs if we do our regulators and reclosers, but that number will drop before the end of the year. Page 5 is just revenues only by fund as of September. It tells you, you want to see all black. There's a few reds, meaning there's still money to be collected. So expected revenue, first column, actual revenue, second column, third column. If it's black, it means we're over. We've gotten over what we thought. And if it's red, it's under. The biggest weird one on there is the utility overpayment fund, and if you remember, the beginning of the year, we had, this fund kept growing and growing like a monster, so the first 3 months of the year, that was my job to figure out why, and there were some postings that never got moved. A lot of the utility payments go into the utility overpayment fund, and then they get posted to the individual accounts. And when that happens in the billing account, it didn't happen in the accounting system. We fixed all that. They're within, I think, $2,000 of each other right now, which is huge for that amount of money. So revenue as of September should be over 75% collected if you think we're cyclical, which we kind of are. And currently we're sitting at 86% collected. So we're above our 75% target. The next page, number 6, is expense analysis by fund, and it is the exact same thing with just expenses only. What did we budget for is in the first column, year-to-date appropriations, year-to-date actual expenses, unexpensed appropriations, meaning what's the difference between what we budgeted for and what we have actually spent. And that column there with the percentages is the one that we kind of really look at. And then there's encumbrances, meaning we have money sitting in a PO or somehow other obligated to some other entity, and then you subtract the unencumbered balance. So page 6 goes into page 7 for the rest of the expense funds. And our expended should be at 75% as well as of September 30th, and overall, our overall expenses at 60%. There's no red flags in this one at all. If you see no red, it's the utility overpayment fund, has some funky stuff in it again, just because we're cleaning it up from past years.
Can you remind us what that fund is?
Yeah, so when a mass of payments come in, it goes into the utility overpayment fund, and then it gets parceled into the individual accounts. And it might be through an ACH, usually, if somebody pays electronically, right? So when they clear those out of that fund, on the billing system, we have 2 separate systems. Billing and accounting don't talk to each other. The talking part is me and Karina. We make them talk to each other. So when those big ACH funds, once a month she posts those, and as she clears them out, she transfers them out of that utility fund and into the individual accounts so that you get credit for paying your bill, and pushes a batch out there to accounting. Well, some of those big batches never got posted in 2021. It's been growing since 2021. And 2022, there are a couple. So in 2023, beginning of the year, we cleaned out $197,000 of them that were sitting there that shouldn't have been sitting there. So it was just making the accounting and billing system even again. So that was fun. Page 8 is the bank report, and it just tells you where do we have our cash. And it's the same numbers again. We started a beginning balance of $10,998,000, and we end with $11,400, let's say $500,000. I'm not going to steal Judy's thunder, but I'll steal a little bit of Judy's thunder. $6.2 million is in Star, Ohio, $1.8 million in Raymond James. Mayor's Court has their teeny little $381. West Banco has $3.4 million, and then West Banco payroll is impressed, which means it gets cleared out at the end of every month, so it should be zero. The cash balance increase is $500,000 from the beginning of the year to the end of September. And of note, interest income for those 9 months has been $391,000. Think about that for a minute. It's $391,000 for nothing. It's a lot of. So Judy will talk a little bit more about it in the Treasurer's report. We've been able to manage very well with West Banco. We thank them for their support, and work with Star, Ohio at the same time to maximize, and Raymond James to maximize that interest income before it starts to tank in about 3 months, I think.
What's the West Banco interest rate now?
Judy, are we up? I can't remember.
Like 565, wasn't it?
It's not that high.
Or something.
Thank you. So we're at 5.46. Darha is a little bit higher than that right now, but I think, as we all know, there's some doom and gloom coming down the road with the interest hikes, so. Last page, no, this is the utility roundup page, and I think we'll go into a little more detail, but for 2023, we started with $15,000 in utility roundup, which is people donating, rounding up their utility bills to help other people pay their utility bills. We have revenue of $5,490 so far this year, and we've spent $880,000. The unexpended balance, meaning the cash that's in that fund, is $7,600, too many hundred thousands. We've had 455 customers donating, which is 19% of our consumers that are using our utilities, and we've had 43 applications so far through September. And we'll talk a little more about that in a minute. And then the last page is just council commissions. It tells you where the council budget is, and I think I detailed, and it hasn't changed much in this quarter, where council has decided to sponsor funds, and this is where these $50,200 has gone into each of the events, and some of them it's a virtual donation, meaning it helps to cover staff time and cost, like for street fair, PD time, that kind of stuff. Questions?
Thank you very much. This is great. Impressed cash?
That's the cash that's downstairs in the tills for them to make change with.
Okay.
Yeah.
The kitty.
It's the kitty. We have
Okay.
2 kitties.
Okay. All right. And I spoke. I didn't open the dais. Anyone else any other comments? Okay. So we do have to vote to approve the third quarter financials. So I will entertain a motion to do so.
I move.
Second.
All right. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. Now, Judy? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just slow moving here. I just want to say thank you, Amy. If everybody's unclear, like this, the information has gotten so much better on our finances. You know, for the first year I was here, we didn't get, these reports. So just thank you. It's just great that we get this thorough information.
Yep. And you're one of the finance managers that Brian likes.
Oops.
You're on the list.
You are.
Apparently, they're not all created equal, so, but
Yeah.
we do appreciate all the work.
Definitely.
Alrighty. And Judy, now your turn.
Well, stealing thunder, let me just say. So it's true, we have active investment, $11,499,073 at this point. That's a pretty nice increase to date for 2023. Quarterly interest earnings for Star Ohio have been $84,927, $48,310 for West Banco, and $11,546 for Raymond James. You can sort of see that play out in the thank you, Amy, pie charts. And annual comparison, you can see there's been an increase of a lot. We're up 245,189 over last year, and we're only, that's as of the end of September. Cash balances, Amy went over. You got the lovely pie charts. Should you care to look at pie charts? You've got Brad Drager's information, which is basically sort of things are holding steady there. And as Amy mentioned, we have sort of the best possible of all worlds, because we've got West Banco, which has given us a lock rate that's very good. And Amy didn't believe me when I said, no, a lock is a lock. They keep it there. It's not dropping. She said, oh, surely they'll drop it when the interest rate go down. And I said, oh, no, they didn't during the pandemic. They didn't do it. So I suggested, well, let's, clarify that for darn sure, but that's absolutely what they did for us. They've been pretty exceptional in that regard. So they're there at 5.46. I think we're going to hold steady with them. Star Ohio is still doing very well. They were at 5.72 as of last Thursday. And while that's not going to last forever, we're going to keep things over there as long as we can and then just yank them back into West Banco when things start to drop. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions for the treasurer's report? All right. Go.
So can you just, we've had, how much interest income this year?
A lot.
I did specify. We have slightly different totals, Amy and I.
Yeah, because she has the investments only and I have everything. It's $381,000.
Yeah. So, not just thanks for doing reporting, but like for making us a bunch of money.
Well, Judy and I
so-
have it on our calendar for every month.
Yeah.
Take a
So
look.
thank you, Judy. I know you've been
Stroll in,
really
get
on
some
top of
suckers,
this,
and
so
talk rates.
yeah, and I know that past councils did a lot of work to set this up, but it's our team is doing a great job with this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's a real-
Especially 5 years ago, we were losing money. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
It's good to feel good about finances. All righty, manager's report. The aforementioned manager's report.
Yes. I do not have a lot on the housing subject, so I can tell you that Meg has been doing her due diligence to do a bunch of research. She's reached out to some people to get some back history, and she is figuring out the covenants and different zoning that would need to happen as well. That's my take on it. She did a little report on what she has done so far a little bit, but other than that, I can't tell you. It's in the, let's see what happens, let's see what we got to do, let's see if it's an appetite. So, what I want to mention this because I was excited when it happened, so I want to mention, a week ago, Friday, I get a call in the morning. We got, water plant is turned on early for some reason. No, if you guys realize, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday it rained. So water plant turned on, don't know why, we're looking into it. A little bit later, they're like, well, we're losing water fast at a rate of about 400 gallons a minute. And we can't they're barely keeping the towers at 67 feet. So staff starts looking for it. We didn't push no panic alarms, we just went into, how you going to find a leak in the downpouring rain? Because you're looking for water. At 11 o'clock, the water distribution team and the water plant team, they were still looking for it. At 1 o'clock, we pulled in more resources from the electric side, from the street side. By 2:30, they found it. Now, mind you, it's 2:30 in the afternoon on a Friday. The water distribution and electric superintendent was going on vacation on Saturday morning. So he was in my office. We immediately went out to the scene. They found it on the edge of Enon Road in a ditch line, and it was a small 3-foot puddle that just looked out of the ordinary. And lo and behold, they got the leak detection out. They dug down, found it, and by 6 o'clock, staff was cleaned up, the leak fixed, and they was going home on a Friday. Phenomenal. I'm just telling you, we have an outstanding crew. It doesn't matter if it's infrastructure, zoning, finance, PD. I can't say no more. I mean, this team is awesome.
How did they find it? Just drive around?
They drove around 30 miles of line, and we checked the 16-inch water main, and it was just a matter of going around and seeing what was out of the ordinary. Now, let's fast forward to the day. Still having issues, just a little bit. We're driving down a lane, Ben and myself, out in the woods, and all of a sudden I'm like, there's water right there. What is going on? Drive down a little bit further. We're a half mile away from the plant, mind you. There's more water there. We're back to well 1. Well 1 has not been in service for 20 years. And so I called Brad, I said, man, you gotta come out here. Because when we got out of the car, I seen water coming out of the ground. He comes back here. We did about 2.5 hours of research. We found a valve, we was able to shut it off. And what was happening is they was pumping water out of the well number 2. And because they're all tied together and the valve was open to an old well, it had broke a pipe coming out of the ground. So again, crews went out there, they was able to fix it, brought more pressure back to the plant. And I just want to say kudos to staff in general, because I can't say one staff's better than another staff, but we have an absolute awesome team at the Village of Yellow Springs. I've said it for years. I would put our team up, no matter what they are, PD, finances, public works, against any municipality, city, don't matter big, small. We have the best in the business. And with that, we have tree lighting on December 2nd. So Wheel and Gaunt, we already discussed that. That is flour and sugar that will be passed out by the team. And then we have tree lighting. So you'll start seeing some banners go up. You'll see some tree decoration going up. And then we have a scheduled tree lighting for December 2nd at 6 p.m. Ben will have it up on the website and on the Channel 5, and that way so we can invite everybody downtown and enjoy the tree lighting and the different events that are planned for that night. The other thing that I'll mention, I'll highlight, a PD, they did a fabulous job with the candy, keeping everybody safe on Halloween. My wife and I was on another side of town. We had an awesome time. My neighbor's like, hey, Scrooge, you didn't pass out candy. I said, I was in Yellow Springs passing out candy.
And thank you for the Reese cups.
Reese cups. Thanks for all the people that cooked the hot dogs and the bonfires. It's much appreciated through town, and we appreciate you doing it. On to the electric crew. The picture, if you see in the picture, let me explain the picture. It's under the electric department. You'll see 2 big green boxes, and they just look like big green boxes to you guys. But if you look to the far left, when the crews were out doing inspections and looking at things, the wires laying on the bottom of the left are not supposed to be that way. That actually rusted off laying down. That is 7,200 volts to ground. And the crew found it. They immediately went into, let's get an outage set up. They got that fixed within about a day by the time they got the new ones dug in. But again, let's back up to last year at this time. We did not have the staff to safely do this job at the drop of a hat like we did. So again, council, thank you for listening and helping us out to get the staff that we needed. Absolutely. Again, I go back to the council again, we didn't have a distribution crew last year that could concentrate on trying to find a water leak. That was also the electric people. And they was already dealing with problems due to the rain. So I say all that to say thank you. Go to Kings Island. Kings Island was an absolute blast. The Yellow Springs School did come through in the 9th inning with a school bus for us. The kids was able to go. They had a fantastic time. She had a complete full bus. It was all paid for. There was a couple people that Sam wanted to recognize, and that was Jason Bailey and John Purden for pitching in to cover all the meals for the kids. So it was an absolute phenomenal day. They had good weather. So they did get back at midnight. So I was already asleep way before they got back. So, but again, thanks everybody that works for the village and puts in the time and effort.
Good. Excellent. Yep.
Yeah, I would like to talk about the housing thing, or potential for housing at the CBE. So it's my understanding that the only way we would have an apartment building of any size for moderate and low-income people would be a tax credit. I bet 90%, I mean, it is so difficult to do rental housing, and it is so difficult to do it without adequate funding. And the only way you can get adequate funding is tax credit. So for whatever reason, this CBE site, unfortunately, is the only site in the Yellow Springs area that scores high enough to apply for tax credit. In fact, it's my understanding that it scores quite high. So it's not like, oh, we can go somewhere else or we can do it here. It's like, it's that place or it's not going to happen probably. Now, there are other sites in that area that are not within the urban service boundary, or not within the village. But on Enon, on both sides of Enon, there's property that eventually, probably Yellow Springs will expand. The site on the south side of Dayton Street, west of the school that Rick Donahoe owns, is also presumably will come into the village at some point. All of those sites could have housing and or business. I think it's a bit unfair to conflate an industrial park of the kind that I know has happened in the past, where there's all sorts of odors and lights and fumes and everything and sound, with low-income housing. Of course, we don't want that, but my sense of the covenants that are in place in this site we're pretty restricted in the kind of industry that we will allow on that site. The last thing is, I don't know that it would need to be an either-or. My understanding is 2 or 3 acres out of, I'm not sure how many are left, would be needed for housing. So clearly it's a difficult thing. It's a long shot. And at the same time, regardless of whether, for whatever reason, that site has been sitting there with nothing happening, and except for CBE. I mean, it's been sitting there for a long time. So that's all.
So, 2 things for me. Lisa touched on it earlier. So no matter what we allow as far as industry is concerned or business is concerned, the optics are that we are putting poor people on an industrial site. Whether or not that's a small scale business. Cresco's not huge, at least this grow operation is not huge, but that's something that we have to consider. We have to consider those optics. Because if it were any other municipality and we were speculating and having a conversation about putting housing for moderate to low income people on a commercial site or an industrial site, that's one thing that I do want to say. Conflating or not, whether we allow what kind of industry or not, that's kind of the look. The other piece of it is, what does the state say? Because maybe no one's ever had the opportunity to put housing next to what happens to be a marijuana grow facility. Whether I have an opinion about that or not is really of no consequence. What's the state going to say about it? And I also understand that at this point this is just an idea. It's almost purely speculatori. And are we going to put the effort forth or not? So those are the two. Those are the two things that I'm trying to reconcile. What the state will say or won't say, what Cresco will say or won't say, what they're going to move forward with or not, and then, those 3 things. And then the look. you know.
Yeah, it also would look pretty nice to be next to Antioch University Midwest, so it's not like it's not like, this major industrial site. But I think, to me, the reason why it's not on the agenda is because we are still trying to figure out what is or isn't possible, and then we can have this discussion. So, Carmen, you nailed one thing, which is, does OFA even allow this? And so that's being checked out. I know our village solicitor is checking out what's going on with covenants, and the variety of other things. So I don't really think we have anything to discuss, other than we understand that there are different opinions about this, and Cresco and Antioch University Midwest and everybody else is in the mix. But part of why I said earlier that things change is, unfortunately, the scoring in town changed. So if we are going to make this happen, this is the one site, nobody chose it, that scores high enough. But we don't know enough yet.
Can I make a comment?
A real brief one, considering that we don't.
All I want to say is that, as Mary Ann mentioned, there's other places where we could have residential housing. There isn't any other place to do an industrial site in the village. And it's hard enough to do economic development in the village. We are expensive here. And now you put housing in there, we're not going to get anybody that's going to want to go in after housing goes in. I would find that, I'd be surprised. I'd be very surprised. I've been surprised before, but I would be surprised.
Yeah. Except office buildings and other things we thought about. But I think the point is, I want to reiterate, nobody chose that site. We would much rather it go anyplace else. It's just a factor of the scoring. And so if it is at all possible, we have to consider it, but we're not ready to have that discussion yet.
Okay.
Well, there's all kinds of issues that we could talk about. I just want to reflect for a second on the sort of process here. So just to say that if anybody wants to, you can watch the budget. This came up in the first budget meeting very briefly, then the second budget meeting we talked about it more. I think that's accurate, right? Yeah. If you, in the second budget meeting, you'll see, there's a housing committee that was asked to start looking at this, and we were just like, we don't really have a housing committee that's up and functioning yet.
We were going to wait until after the end of the year, after the election cycle, and this came up, and I understand we have to deal with things as they come up.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, this was something that was presented in a really untimely, unfortunate timing.
Yeah. So I just want to say basically that there's a lot of pieces at work here. There's been some significant changes in staffing. There's been changes in the makeup of the committee. It's a timely issue that's complex from lots of different angles. So I just want to say that at least I'm trying to be really thoughtful about what is our process here. How do we create spaces for the dialogue? I'm sitting here thinking man, should we have invited YSDC to the housing committee? Well, yeah, as I'm sitting here, but I'm also remembering that we set up this meeting on a Friday at 2 o'clock, and then we set up a meeting on a Monday at 11, and didn't even know that there was a YSDC sort of related issue at that point. I'll speak for myself, I didn't. It was helpful information that Lisa, you shared. Obviously there was a context to it, but it wasn't something that, I don't think that came up directly, and I don't think anybody was working on the weekend to address it. So anyway, just to say, there's a bunch of complexity here. There's lots of other issues we could talk about around the concept, but from a process standpoint, I think there's a lot to learn here of how we can communicate, how we can get our system set up so that we can effectively communicate in these situations. So I would just put that out there, and then definitely look forward to talking about this more at the next meeting when we have, I think we may have some more information and answers, so we can get into that in the future agenda planning.
So I'll wrap up and just say that, yes, we're doing our due diligence. A lot of unanswered questions. We'll figure out what all the facts are, and we will do what we feel is in the best interest of the village going forward. Okay? All right. Okay. Just saw a note that made me reconsider what we're doing next. So,
Utility roundup.
well, first, old business. Any old business? No old business. New business on utility roundup. We've talked about utility roundup before. I'll just, effectively, everyone is, I think, familiar with the fact that we have the ability to opt into a program that you can ask that the village round your bill up. For example, if your monthly bill is $100.03, you can round up to $101, and you're donating 97 cents to the utility roundup program. Amy K. alluded to it when she was giving her third quarter report, and she went over the numbers, and if you didn't catch it, about 19% of village households have come to, I think so. Okay. About 19% of the village takes advantage of, in a positive way, of the utility roundup program. They need assistance, they get assistance. Well, we've allowed more people to access more funds over a particular period of time, such that the fund that began the year, if I'm looking at the numbers right, at about 15,000 is now at about 6,000, just a little over 6,000. So what we want to consider, and it's something that I considered when we reconstituted or started the program about 5 years ago, we got some pushback from the, amongst other folks, from the finance director at the time. Don't know how Brian feels about that person, but but we didn't do it. We didn't do opt-out. So what we're talking about is, right now, folks have to say, yes, round up my bill to the nearest dollar. What I was hoping for back 5 years ago was minimum 50% of the households, upwards of 75-80% of the households. We are at about the same number of households that take advantage of the program. 19 or 20% of residences have signed up for the utility roundup program. If you do sign up for the utility roundup program, the most, on average, that's going to cost you in a year is going to be $6. If your bill is blah, 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 and 1 cent every single month, and you have to round up 99 cents every single month, that's $11.88 for the year. If folks have a problem with that, with us switching from opt-in, where you have to ask to be put in, if what we're considering doing, we're not going to flip the switch right now, but what we're considering doing, what we're going to talk about is switching that program to opt-out. In other words, every residential utility account would be in the program and able to round up from 1 cent to 99 cents each month to contribute to this program. And if you're not comfortable with that, to continue that point, we have made the process of opting out simple. Just contact the utility office. Not Amy. But contact the utility office. I don't want to go into a deep dive about our village values, but who we are is why we do this in the first place. And what I'm trying to introduce and have us begin to discuss and consider is, can we be who we are a little better than what we're doing right now? And I think on the surface, when you understand that I'm asking you for $6 to help out, $6 per year to help out other families, I suspect everyone in this room, everyone under the sound of my voice, would say, yes, I'll do it. Apparently, however, getting it done is just one extra hurdle that folks tend not to do. And I would think that if that $6 a year, and there are some folks where that would matter, and I can appreciate that. It's a very easy process to say, thanks, but no thanks. I'm one of the folks that needs to take advantage of it, so, don't want to just keep recycling the same dollars. So, what we are considering, and I'm soliciting support from my colleagues, is, and Mary Ann, by the way, was certainly a consistent voice over the last several months, probably a couple of years, of going for an opt-out program. I'll just throw Oberlin, Ohio, out as an example, because I just know that they have an opt-out program, and I wish I think they're up in the 80+ percentile of the folks who are still contributing, and certainly that just allows us to have a greater reach. So I'm going to wrap up now in the interest of time. It's really, the points that need to be made are really, really salient. Please consider, I've asked before, I've made this appeal before, to ask folks to consider signing up. What I'd like for us to do, what at least Mary Ann and I would like for council to consider approving, is switching the program to opt-out, and then for those who don't want to participate, just like I said, contact the utility office, and no harm, no foul. You'll no longer be in there, but I suspect that if we go this rate, that we would stay at 80+% of the residents. And I, again, think if folks could do it without going through any trouble, I think they would have done it already. So we're trying to make it an easy process, if you will, to be able to contribute $6 a year to help out folks who I don't want to say are less fortunate, but folks who sometimes get in a bind for various reasons. So I've, again, said enough. I will open the dais to other council members if you have an opinion. I want to do this, and I hope you want to also.
Well, one thing that you can do is simply ask if there's enough voice on council to request a resolution come to the next meeting, amending the utility roundup program.
Yes, that. Is there enough interest for us to move forward with putting together a resolution to modify the existing program, which does say it's opt-out, and we made changes recently because we are allowing folks to come into the program more frequently and get more money. So we'd have to make another change to the it's an ordinance, isn't it?
That we could do by resolution.
By resolution. But it is an ordinance that we have to change.
You told us we could amend that part of it with a resolution, because it says changes can be made, blah, 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 when we have this conversation.
Yeah. Oh, I
was
like
sure
that.
you were at the time, too. That's why I made this little note right
So
here.
let's, thank
All right, well,
you.
first of all, I'm
Yeah.
curious, Mary Ann, did you want to add anything?
Well,
Okay.
like you said, I've said ever since we started, we should have opt-out rather than
Okay.
opt-in.
So I would just say, whether you put a resolution in the next packet or not, I think the information that we need, number one is the number of, so I assume that this is for residents and business. Is that right, Amy? I mean, is it?
Utility roundup?
Yeah, I spoke as though it was just residents.
It's residents only? So my understanding is, I've always heard that we have 1,200-ish, billable resident addresses or whatever.
I think it's 1,800.
18, okay. So we're talking about 450. I guess I don't understand what the donors, I mean, if it's 1,800 and 450, I guess that's 25%. So maybe that math makes sense. I mean, I know there are other donors, besides, that happen. So I guess I wonder about those numbers. But from my calculations, it seems like the maximum that we would gain from opt-out is about $5,000 a year. So I guess I just want to make sure in making the case that, there's some clearer calculation than what I did on the back of the napkin as to what we're raising. I think in terms of what we're trying to spend, what we've seen is that we're now back at the original amount almost that we started with. And so, I can see as we're trying to actively spend more, that there's a use for those funds. So I just think that should be. And then the default effect to me is a counter argument, not an argument pro doing an opt-out, by the way. So I guess ultimately I would just like to see a more solid making the case for why we're going through this effort. And the last thing I'll say is, if it's easy for people to opt out, I guess it should also be easy for them to opt in, right? I mean, it should be the same kind of call thing. So, I mean, the whole reason why we didn't do it that way is because a lot of people don't like something just to be added to their account, even if it's $6 a year. So, I guess I'll say I'm generally supportive, but I'd like a clear make the case document.
Okay. So I think the numbers show up in a couple of different places. Amy, I think your one memo, does outline. Yes, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Brian, you're correct. We started in 2019 with about $6,400, and we're down to about $6,200. So it's kind of oddly even, the ins and outs over the last 4 or almost 5 years. 2022, 467 donors with 51 applications. And 2023, 455 donors with 43 applications. I asked the staff to go back, and they actually counted actual applications. We've had 10 people seek assistance more than once from Utility Roundup since July of 22, when we changed the rules to say you could get it 2 times a year. They can get up to $400 2 times a year. We don't judge the applications. It's the Senior Center.
Mm-hmm.
They just come back to us approved or not approved. And so there's 2 ways to handle this as the funds start to dwindle. And as you know, the utility staff downstairs are like, hey, do we have enough money for this? They think about things like that, and they don't really control the applications that are approved, is to stop allowing twice a year. That's only going to cut down $4,000, right? Or decrease the amount they get every time. But I do believe that there are individuals that have a greater need than others that are seeking it. And those people are actually in Utility Roundup. They are. The ones seeking assistance are in Roundup. Because I asked her, we transfer funds, it's virtual funds. And I'm like, why am I taking it out of Utility Roundup and putting it back in? And she said, because they donate. And that's part of the assistance we give them. So that I found to be interesting. They also suggested alternative ways of making money. Let's do an awareness campaign. Let's do a brewery night, whatever. And the staff want to do this, not me. They came up and said, what if we got a band and charged an entry fee and just say, sign up here, kind of thing, do a little fundraiser. People do give at Christmas. They're very generous with checks at Christmas. So I'm hoping, but we are way behind this year. Well, $5,900 in versus $9,400 in 2022, and it's already, 2/3 of the year is gone. So people's bills aren't rounding right. They're all 99 cents, right? Or they're all $20.99. So those are kind of the facts that we looked at.
So how many applications this year?
So far this year, 43.
And then of that 43, 10?
10 since 2022. They counted since they changed. So it changed in July of 2022 that you could apply twice a year.
Okay.
Only 10 people have come back more than 2 times in a year.
Okay.
Or at 2 times in a year. You can't come back more than 2.
So I think a lot of, there was a big chunk of money that Lisa Krieger helped secure, I think $5,000 from the Community Foundation early on, sort of seed money, if you will. And you can also, in addition to your roundup, you can also have a regular monthly additional amount. And folks can just show up at the utility office and hand over and donate then. So, I would think that those are some other variables that perhaps are happening less. So when you, I think from the perspective of our controlling what we can control, I mean, we can't control folks doing the ad hoc or at will donations, but I think making the change is a low bar. So I would submit perhaps as fodder with the resolution, we can, just have these numbers, if they need to be reconfigured to maybe explain more what things more in detail. So the question on the table then is there enough support to bring a resolution to make this change? It can pass or not pass, but is there enough support to bring a resolution to the table next meeting? I'm in support. I know Mary Ann's in support.
I'm fine with it. I mean, honestly, I don't have a strong opinion about it. It's not a particularly large amount. I'm fine with it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And Brian, you said you're generally supportive, so.
Yeah, I just think we should make the case.
Okay. So, Amy, you and I, all Amy's present, let's make sure we have as much information as we can as supporting documentation, if you will, for the resolution. And if we could, Judy, yes, bring a resolution to change, however the machinations are to make the change. If we could have that to consider at our next meeting, I appreciate it. That's all I will have at this moment. Thank you very much, Council, for your support. Our next new business, Mary Ann, you'll be next, but the next new business is a nomination for continued service for the Board of Zoning Appeals. And Judy, I think that might be you or...
Yeah, it's me, and I'm looking for my little thing. I don't particularly thank you so much. Board of Zoning Appeals does not have a council representative on it, so generally a recommendation for a reappointment comes from the clerk and the planning and zoning administrator, putting our heads together and talking about, does this look like something we want to open back up? Does it look like something we want to offer this ongoing? With Matt Reed, that's really a no-brainer. He served on Planning Commission for many years, and once he came off of Planning Commission, we threw ourselves in front of him and begged him to come on to BZA, which he sort of reluctantly agreed to do, but they meet much less frequently. It is very difficult to get qualified people who are interested in volunteering on either of those boards or commissions. Matt does a great job, so we are, Meg Leatherman and I are recommending that he be voted in for another 5-year term.
And I do just want to, just for the record, emphasize that when we do open it up, it's typically the council president and the planning and zoning administrator that do interview a new person. So, Scott Osterholm, for example. But Judy, just so I'm clear, so you're saying just with BZA, when there's a spot open, we don't always open it up, as opposed to what we do with other commissions? So
BZA and Planning Commission are different sorts of animals in that the longer you're on those commissions, the more you learn about the ins and outs of those things, which are fairly specific. Those are both state-required boards and commissions, and they're both difficult to get people to serve on. So we have in the past run the ads. It's so, at this point, entirely performative because We run ads, and it just delays us by about a month as we wait for nobody at all to apply. We have had people apply in the past and then literally just never show up. Not show up for training, not show up to a meeting, not ever show up, even though they were approved. It takes a committed individual to do these things. Read those packets, commit the time, sometimes suffer the slings and arrows of their neighbors. It's not a walk in the park. So for that reason, both of those, yes, we have in the past opened them up. I don't necessarily love that process, but yes, we have. And we will again, coming right up, because we've got open alternate positions for both. I'm just waiting until after the election, because we.
Well, I have no question about Matt Reed either. I agree it's a no-brainer, but I also support trying to keep on looking for good people. So,
All right, so I will offer the official nomination for Matt Reed to continue to serve on BZA.
second.
All righty. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. And before we get to future agenda items, Mary Ann, you've got the OML housing discussion.
So the Ohio Senate Select Committee on Housing is holding regional meetings around the state to get feedback from communities on the state of housing and housing needs in our communities. And the Ohio Municipal League is encouraging its members to come to these meetings or provide written testimony. So, as I said, there was a meeting in Cincinnati last month, and there's a meeting in Marietta, Ohio on the 17th of this month. And I think it's really important that we provide the state with some information on the issues that we're facing with housing. And the OML says to provide our experience with housing, as well as how the state can assist municipalities to address this pressing issue. So we were just talking about how difficult it is to fund affordable housing, and I think it would be pretty easy to tell the state that how you could help would be provide more funding. So anyway, I would like to write a brief summary of the state of housing, what we're facing in Yellow Springs, historically how that has happened, the work that we've done, that's been done, but how difficult it is, and have Gavin look at it, and I'm happy to, Johnny, run it by you or Meg, to get whatever input we want. And I'd like to get it done by the end of next week to get it out. They need 48 hours, I think.
Yeah, so next Friday then, because you said the 17th is when the actual meeting is.
Yeah.
So there's probably a day or two prior to that any written correspondence needs to be
a couple
submitted.
days.
Yeah. Okay.
The 15th is Friday, I think, so the 17th would be Monday. Anyway,
Something
say
like
by
that.
next Thursday. I guess.
Okay. So does, Gavin,
Marion sent an email, said, shared the basic details. I didn't see any, all I said was, sure, go for it. I'm happy, if it's helpful to look at it, I'm fine with it. I don't personally feel strongly about it. I feel like the idea of submitting some information on what's happened here, I didn't see any harm in it, so, yeah.
Does the rest of council want to at least lay eyes on what Marianne puts together before it goes out? I mean, we can get it, Judy can distribute it to us if we want to do that. I mean, we don't want to delay the process because we're already looking at short.
I think Gavin's on the housing committee, so council-wise, that's good. And then, as long as staff's.
I'd like to look at it as well. I mean,
So I guess
obviously,
I mean, you really can't do that. You really can't do that. Two people can work on it, and if you don't have time to bring it back, so you're either empowering.
Could y'all two work on it? I don't feel strongly about it, so if you want to look at it, do you want to just do it?
Absolutely.
Cool. Great. That's fine with me. I don't. Because we can't have three of us do it, right?
Right. So do we,
Okay, so I'd like to get it sent out hopefully on Thursday. So I'll get it to you on Tuesday. Confused about, are we talking, my brain went dead.
well, it is
The
the
17th is
17th, which is next Friday.
Next Thursday.
No.
So I'll get it to you a
Next
couple of
Friday. 17th is
days
next
ahead of
Friday.
time, so you can look at it and get it back to me.
Amy B., you feel any inclination to lay eyes on this?
If you want me to, I'm happy to read it.
I'd like for you to.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Great. So we just include Amy in that loop of editorializing?
Yeah, that, Amy.
Yeah. No, she's a community servant.
Why don't you send what you're done with to me when you're done, when you're like, okay, we got it where we want it, and I'll get it to Amy.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mary Ann, for bringing this to our attention. I'm not sure if I mean, I've seen some, state-sponsored meetings floating around. I'm not sure if I recall this. I'm sorry we missed one in Cincinnati, but appreciate you being there for us. This is another example of the legacy that you are establishing regarding housing and affordable housing, and in addition to environmental stuff. So thanks for being there.
So I don't know if other council members get the OML newsletter, but they do it at least once a week, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe more often.
I mean, it's believe.
I think we all should. I mean,
Yeah.
I know we
I mean,
mentioned it periodically.
I get it, and like I said, I may have seen that, but it just didn't ring
Okay,
somehow.
so
Yeah.
9:45. Just making an observation.
No, it's not 9:45. It's actually
9:45.
It's 11:45.
11.
We-
11.
For the rest of this month, we're still on daylight
Yeah, what
savings.
time is it?
All right,
11.
future agenda items.
Midnight.
We've got a few things teed up already. We've got the resolution. Did anything else come out of
Get
tonight?
AMP landfill agreement that you haven't seen, that'll be on there. That is the only thing that I had added. You made a lot of noise about the potential of talking about housing on CBE. I don't know that that'll necessarily have anything to do with council. So maybe.
What do you mean by that, Judy?
Because there are covenants and restrictions that require that all three entities have to agree to any change to those covenants and restrictions, and so that's all three of those entities.
So you
Really nice.
Yeah, I hear that. But you can see how, I mean, we added 18 minutes to today's agenda because we didn't have it on the agenda, because in the interim of waiting for that decision, so it's just an acknowledgement that if we, in lieu of someone else deciding, we're engaged. I know I'm getting called about it. Like, we're engaging whether we like it or not. So I'm just suggesting, like, I understand it might not be our issue, but it's.
I think it'd be outstanding to see what OPA thinks about housing next to a marijuana production facility, whether, that needs to happen at the same time that there's any kind of council discussion.
Well, St. Mary agreed to check on that, so.
I would feel comfortable having more of an opinion, because at this point, it's just that, because it's all speculation. It might not be a thing that can even happen anyway. And until we know that information, I personally, I know that we will probably end up spending time on it, but I want to on the record say that I would rather spend our time on other things, more on actual things.
So if someone were to bring a report to us, would that be Meg?
Thank you. My 2 cents would be Megan and I. Us together.
So if you have something, great. If not, great. So put a placeholder.
We'll figure it out in agenda planning, I would say.
So I have a question about that, of course. Okay. Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, and I know you've got it on the the Housing Committee update. So we do this totally separate from the
From housing.
the discussion we just had around this particular project.
Yep.
We're trying to get the Housing Committee set up in part to figure out how might we approach things like this in the future, sort of systematically. So we have a meeting on the 9th, and I know that we want to do a substantive, sort of report out discussion. So just so, mostly I'm just flagging this, like I was expecting that was going to be like a 15-minute kind of thing.
All right, anything else? Besides flinging phones? All right, if there's nothing else pressing, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye again, and thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
It's been a great meeting. I feel good.
Kevin, who moved?